All right, everyone. Um, Good evening, afternoon, morning, depending on where you're at. Welcome. If you want, um, please in the chat box so I get a sense of who's in the room. And if you want to just like say hello, where you're practicing from, also if you're new, I would love to see that. Really want to welcome everyone who's new to this space, our Sunday service, which is just right now a little bit irregular because my life is irregular, as yours should be too, considering we're in the depths of the apocalypse. But in any case, this is just a space for the first half of this time, this 3 hour period, is to really explore the teachings of the mother, and as many expressions of the mother as possible. I'll explain that more. And the second half is just our sitting practice, our Mahamudra practice, and just let you all know too that I'm in the process of developing what would say a first level course on the Mahamudra as Lama Justin is transitioning into his retreats. I think next week he goes into retreat. I will be just starting a course that I think will help continue the momentum of Mahamudra for the people, which I'm super excited about. Um, and I hope that the course will be, I want it to be a lot of things, definitely trauma informed. We don't often teach Mahamudra in the lens of trauma. Hopefully, it can be more inclusive. Maybe it can be a little more movement based. So that's what we're working on. We hopefully we'll get that course up and going in June. It won't be, we may run it for about 5 or 6 weeks. It'll just be, some work on crowdcast and some practice groups, and you'll get material that I will develop, that you can continue to work with. And that's like the first level. So first level would be, shamatha, which would be like mindfulness, concentration. In Mahamudra, we don't often talk about concentration practice or mindfulness. We kind of move right into shamatha, calm abiding, or shine. But I'm going to streamline language and all that. Anywho, we'll talk about that in our second half of our program today. So, yeah, just welcome everyone. I see so many new people, a couple of new people from all over the world, from Sweden, and some Midwest folks in Montreal. Awesome. Denver. um, Kansas City. Awesome. So, welcome everyone to the space. Yeah, so, yeah, turning our attention back to, yeah, the practice of the mother, Matara. And I think that I've been thinking about a lot of different things. And this morning, I was up early this morning, just reflecting on how, for me, how critical, how important it has been for me to practice like connecting to the essence of the mother, right? To this to this fluid, nurturing, warm, loving, conscious energy. This is how I understand the mother. This conscious cosmic energy it's about support, right? It's about offering a space to be, to express ourselves. And I am very connected to different expressions of the mother as well. Tara, of course, being one of the first expressions, but also I feel very connected to Mary Magdalene as an expression of the mother. I feel very connected um, to the mothers within kind of the Vedic Hindu pantheon, the Mahadevyas or the Mahavidyas, and particularly Kali, Durga, Dumavati. Dumavati being an expression of the mother that I feel particularly closer with because Dumavati, her consciousness, her energy is an expression that's related to grieving, to grief, to mourning, to isolation, to loneliness and sorrow. She's the mother that we meet in the very heart of sorrow and loneliness and isolation. She's there waiting for us as we move through that energy. She's often considered the mother of widows or widowers, right? She's depicted as what the common language in her tradition referred to her as the crone, which I don't really actually use that word for anyone, although the crone has this kind of archetypal place within this tradition of mothers. But I often say that she has that representation of being elderly or aged because she represents this kind of experience where we don't want to deal with that energy. Like we don't want, like we don't, we're afraid of that, those experiences of sorrow, grief, isolation, right? You know, and so we find ourselves pushing that away, you know. And so she takes on that appearance. And that's one of the characteristics of tantric practice, right? Is that beings take on the image of what they're trying to mirror back to us, if that makes sense, right? So benevolent, loving, compassionate beings become an expression of what we're most afraid of in order to reflect back to us that fear so we have something to work with, right? And I think that this is why we have this kind of pantheon of like really wrathful, fearful beings within tantra traditions. You know, you have these demon-like beings and monsters and so forth, because they're trying to draw us closer to what we're terrified about or around or what we're afraid of or terrified of, right? And so the particular means of Tantra aren't inclusive or accessible on purpose. So Tantra, though I try as hard as I can to make Tantra accessible, and actually that's not the nature of Tantra. The nature of Tantra isn't supposed to be inclusive or accessible because it's a particular kind of expression that leads us into the essence of consciousness, or really the essence of reality itself. And it takes a particular kind of person to line up with that kind of skillful expression. You know, and I've seen people walk into like a Tibetan Buddhist shrine room, which is just like very, that kind of indigenous shamanic practice, that flavor of Tibetan Buddhism, We have like skulls everywhere, you know, and pictures of Dharma protectors, which are all just monsters and demons. And people walk into to these spaces and they just get really turned off. And when I first started, you know, getting interested in Tantra and particularly Tibetan Buddhism, you know, I found everything really evocative, you know, and really, I got in a really spiritual way turned on to that. And that's a sign. So when you see these images, noticing how you respond is actually, there's a lot of data there that can actually tell you if this is a path that's conducive for you. You know, as I've said often before, Tantra, particularly in the early days of Tibetan Buddhism, you know, it was a path of practice that I felt met my own intensity and extremism and drama. There's a drama in tantric traditions, in Vedic, Hindu, Tibetan Buddhist, Vajrayana. Those are tantric traditions, right? There's a drama in these traditions. There's a eccentricity, you know, eccentricity in these traditions. There's a extremism, you know, in these traditions, where everything becomes sacred. Everything can become sacred. And that's already pushing us to our edges, because there are definitely things that we consider to be not sacred, you know. But in the tantric worldview, everything is sacred because everything is an expression of emptiness. Emptiness is inherently sacred. Emptiness is the expression of the deity, you know. Everything is sacred because the nature of everything is liberated, free, spacious, empty. Everything. So there's nothing that falls outside of that sacredness. Like everything, our bodies, our thoughts, our minds, all phenomena, all actions, all forms of violence, actually. Everything is an expression of the sacredness. What we're being called into in terms of being in relationship to this phenomena is to understand that no matter what we experience, see, or everything that happens, everything is always arising from its fundamental emptiness. Even the mother, even all the deities, right? I mean, that's the edge. Like that's really pretty much the edge of tantra, right? You know, that everything is being asked. Well, we're being asked to be in a spacious relationship to everything, even the shit that we can't stand, even the shit that we're habitually running away from, even the shit that we don't understand. We're asked to be in a relationship with it. That's what Tantra is calling us into, is to be in a relationship to all of this. And also, because of what we're being called into, it also means that we're taking a huge risk as well. Tantra, because of what we're being asked to do, is inherently dangerous. It's risky. It's nothing but a big risk, you know. And quite honestly, I've seen enough people crash and burn, you know, on this path, right? And we will crash and burn if first we don't have all the support that we need, and all the support is very explicit, you know, in tantra. You need the support, you know, of the teacher, right? You need the support of of deities, Dharma protectors, and just including also the three gems, right? The Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha, and then the tantric supports, or particularly the teacher, the guru, the Dharma protector. And there's a third one too. I forget what it is. We call it in Tantra, in Vajrayana, we call it the three roots. So you have the three gems, then you have the three roots. I just gave you two. It's not uncommon for me to not remember one thing in a list, or to add more things to a list. Actually, if you don't have the proper support, you're going to spin out of control. And again, I've seen people do that. I've seen people do practices without the guidance of a teacher, without the support of a teacher, without proper commitments to energies, beings around us who can protect that. And the consequences of spiraling out of control can be quite intense. And I know people who have been really, they've experienced a lot of trauma from practice. I have one friend in particular who loves me dearly, you know, as a teacher, but can't, like, if I do any meditation instruction, like, she can't handle it. And this is more common than you realize, actually. There are people who are just, they learned practice in such a way that wasn't really trauma informed. And so it re-traumatized them in certain ways, and they can't even be, my friend can't even stand to be in a meditation space, you know, let alone listen to a meditation instruction. She can't even be in space, right? And that, you know, of course, that's more common than we realize. I think maybe some of us have had those experiences being deeply traumatized, but that's where we can be led into, if we're not skillful in the practice of tantra, right? And so for me, it's just been ever since the beginning of my relationship with tantra. It's just been, for me, a super a super reliance on the teacher, right? For me, that's the foundation for me, the teacher, the guru, right? I need, someone who can hold me in the practice. Traditionally we say, oh, we need tantric masters, but it's, that's a loaded phrase, tantric master as well. What a tantric master is someone who has the capacity to hold people through practice. It doesn't it means that a person has reached they've reached this capacity that they're experiencing an expansion of consciousness. So it's not that there are people who are just like, okay, I'm going to help this person do this. It's largely unconscious, but because of the depth of their practice, consciousness and the expression of their energy is quite expansive, right? And so, not only that expansion of consciousness and energy is also an expression of virtue. And so, when you are a virtuous person, and when I say virtue, you've deeply internalized a sense of goodness and ethics and boundaries. Your primary ethic is bodhicitta based, which means that you want to free people, free beings, and to help people, to free people. That's when we commit to that ethic, we begin to deeply embody goodness. That embodiment of goodness is virtue. When we say someone's a virtuous person, that means they've earned this goodness through the cultivation of bodhicitta, or the wish to free all beings. So when all that's happening, for an individual, a teacher, or whomever, there are many beings, formless beings, who want to be a part of that virtue. You know, um, they're attracted to virtuous beings because these virtuous beings, particularly in the relative in this realm, in the human realm, they see these beings as a way for them um, to help.
I found this on the web.
Sorry about that. I don't know what that is. Siri had something to say. Um, so these beings are these formless beings are attracted to virtuous beings and see them as a way for them to benefit, to touch, well, to benefit beings, but to touch into this realm. Um, and I suspect some of you may have some of these experiences. Particularly, I'm talking about particularly the experiences of there are beings around you. There may be ancestors, guides, guardians, other deities, so forth, um, who are wanting to benefit you, maybe wanting to benefit people around you. So they have figured out a way to touch, to kind of get I say to get a foot into this world, and they've selected things around you that serve as touchstones. So that's why this is like one thing that I'm talking about, but I'll come back to this general thing I'm talking about in terms of tantric masters. But I felt a need to mention that. Um, well, I've been told to tell you this. So that to be just to be, just to get curious about what these touchstones. These touchstones are physical things, often physical things that are often with us, like stones, or it can be anything. Actually, it can be your phone, um, any kind of object, but they become things that benevolent beings. Well, actually, they don't have to be benevolent. That's another talk, though. But benevolent beings can use as a doorway to be of benefit to us and others around us. Um, a good way to test this out or to explore this is to just think about an object that you always tend to want with you. There's something that you always, even if you travel, you have to have this thing. You've had it forever, and you don't know why. You just keep it with you. Um, I've had objects um, that I can't ever lose, that I should lose, that I've had for years and years. There are things that should be lost, and if I do lose it, it comes back to me in a really strange way. I've so many stories about that, like the impossibility of these things coming back to me. They just come back, you know. Um, so think about that. Think about that. Um, but anyway, coming back to tantric beings, right? In the virtue of tantric beings, there are beings getting back to the support that we experience from tantric masters. So a bunch of beings are attracted to a master's virtue, and they, on behalf of that master, actually start supporting people around them. So it's not so much that the master is really enlightened and their consciousness can evade everything. It's also the case there are beings who um, make an oath to the tantric master because of their virtue, and then on behalf of the tantric master, go and help you through practice and support you through situations. Sometimes taking on the the appearance of that master. So sometimes you have, as I do, you have dreams of teachers and gurus and so forth. Sometimes it's just other beings who take on the image of the guru as an expression of the guru as well. Um, I find all this to be really quite fascinating. Um, So so the tantric mass. So we need teachers, tantric masters who can hold us. They themselves, of course, have to be realized, as we've talked about, have to be virtuous. Um, and when we find those beings, like those particular beings, you stick with them. Like when I find teachers like that, like you best believe that I am attached to these people, right? One would say I move across the street from them. So, and live with them. Of course, that's common for me. I've lived with my teachers before. Now I live across the street from my teacher, so it's kind of working out. Um, when you find these beings, as I've found beings, these people, these masters, like you have to take that relationship seriously. It doesn't mean you get rigid about the relationship, but it means that you don't take it for granted. Like, don't take it for granted, right? Um, I talk a lot about Swami Jai Devi. Also, I talk a lot about Sering Wangdi Rinpoche, Lama Sering Wangdi Rinpoche, which is Lama Justin and I's, um, like our one common teacher, close teachers, Lama Sering Wangdi. Um, and so when you find these beings, it's like you understand how rare it is to find a being like that. And I'm saying, as we all know, masters are not perfect, right? You know, so there's always I've talked a lot about this already, so I won't go into it too much. But there's a complexity to every teacher that we encounter, even masters, tantric masters, right? Um, and so we have to hold that complexity, which is also same thing as saying we have to hold the expressions of their humanity, which can get challenging as well. So this is, again, this is again part of the risk, the danger, of this path. Is that, yeah, we're relying on beings who themselves are still expressing flaws, I would say, you know, and we're learning how to hold the space for those flaws, but also to take refuge in the realized qualities of these masters. Again, the complexity of all of this, you know. Um, so yeah, so getting back to tantra itself, right? Um, Again, we're in tantra. We're moving into the essence of things, right? Tantra is a vehicle that moves us into the unartic, our what's the word? The unexpressible. I would say, yeah, the unexpressible expression of ultimate reality. The unexpressed. It can't be expressed. There's no way for it to be expressed. It can be experienced, and that ultimate experience is emptiness and space, right? And we're being led into that experience over and over and over again. Like, we're being led into it, and we're also being led back, you know. And that's a particular emphasis of the Vajrayana expression of Tantra. It's like, we're going to go, but we're going to come back, right? Because we're in this world, in this body, on this land, this earth, you know. Unless it's time for us to transition into the bardo, out of this realm, it's not time for us to go, you know. So we always have to come back, and this is why our commitments to certain beings are really important, because these beings are bringing us back. These beings can include ancestors, as well. Um, but also to say, too, just a little bit about ancestors. Ancestors aren't necessarily realized as well. They have a particular vantage point. They can see more, right? And they have certain abilities as formless beings or disembodied beings to touch into the form world to be of benefit, sometimes not to be of benefit, you know, but they have these particular qualities that they can help if they choose to help, but they're not omniscient, they're not enlightened. Um, so we have to be careful. I think in, I think in the older traditions around ancestor practice and worship, I'm thinking about African traditions, Caribbean traditions, Ifa, Yoruba, so forth. I think that there is a much more realistic, balanced understanding of ancestor relationships and practice, um, that's much more grounded and realistic than maybe some of us just coming into the work of ancestor practice, right? Um, my and we're going to get to practice too. I'm going to get us into some practice too, but I feel compelled to just kind of share a lot of this stuff. So I think it's important for us to always have a context as to what we're doing and why we're doing it. My experience of ancestor practice, yes, it was initiated by like initiated friends in Ifa, practicing Ifa, but the bulk of my experience comes just from my direct relationship with ancestors, through my particular, you know, ability just to talk to ancestors, to do shamanic work around just going into the spirit realm and having interactions, relationships. Um, and a great part about ancestor practice on this level is that you get to continue family drama. Yay! It's real. It's a real thing because someone dies doesn't mean the drama dies. So I have often had to mediate relationships still with people, with loved ones that I knew who passed on, who still are like talking shit. um, So I say all that to say is that we have to have more of a realistic relationship to our ancestors. Absolutely. I know some of you don't do ancestor practice. Some of you are new. I know some of you in the space today, because I see you've introduced yourself. I know you have like really specific practices around with your ancestors. Um, so I say all that to say that like ancestors are helpful, but they're not deities, right? And I look at my ancestors. So often my ancestors have no idea what the hell I'm doing. It's kind of how it is. So like, what are you doing? What's going on? That I have to have these interactions, and then they channel themselves with other people around me. And it's fine. It's fine. They don't have to understand everything. To have other beings who get what I'm doing. It's just a pantheon of beings that we can work. And this is what the Seven Homecomings practice is all about. I designed that practice for us to start developing a way, particularly like a dharmic view of how to relate to the ecology, the ecosystem of formless beings around us, and to start channeling that energy and learning how to set boundaries and protect ourselves and to learning how to set up relationships that are conducive and all of that. That's what the Seven Homecomings is meant to do as well. Um, I think that's where I want to stop at in terms of like the talk, today. I know there's been a lot of information. This is recorded, so you can come back and listen to this talk as much as you want. But the key points I want us to take into our practice is that we need support in the work of Tantra. And I encourage you to start just practicing what it feels like to surrender to the support, you know. And the space is the primary way the mother arises for us. So when we feel the openness, sometimes I think we can shut down and get really scared because we think that we're being abandoned. Actually, that's when a mother shows up, is in a sense of space and openness and vulnerability. So when that openness happens, what some of us begin to feel is the rising of just like difficult energy, because finally it has the space to arise, and that's again that energy is being held by space, and so that is an expression of the mother holding everything. No matter what the expression of the mother is, again, be it Kali or Tara, Dumavati or Mary Magdalene, or Oshun, you know, it doesn't matter. It's like that's the expression of the mother. And over the course of our practice, we're trying to develop a trust in that spaciousness, that space is actually there trying to take care of us. That is not this experience of being abandoned or left alone. Actually, we're very tended to and very held when that space arises for us, right? And this takes practice. It just takes practice of learning how to lean into that and to allow everything just to kind of arise, like within that spaciousness, which is, again, the expression of the mother. And this work is also calling us to transcend our trauma around our own mothers as well. That also calls into the picture the overall work of Tantra, which is actually moving beyond the trauma, moving beyond trauma. Um, so let's just kind of transition into just some practice. And I want to start actually with just our chant to Matara. So it's Om Matara Soha, right? And so the Om Matara Soha is just, excuse me, let me just get this water. Om Matara Soha is just this way that we begin to evoke, to awaken the energy of the mother. I can replace Matara with anything. Like I can say Kali Soha. We're not practicing with Kali right now. Kali is a whole nother expression of the mother. We we talk about dangerous. That's Kali isn't Kali's energy is so intense that we need special training to hold that energy. Um, Tara's energy and Kali's energy are very different. Kali is seductive, passionate, hot, fast, upbeat. Even listing these characteristics, I feel the I feel like they're rising of Kali. Like that's like when I turn my mind to Kali, I feel like her consciousness awakening. And then I have to take a break because I'm like, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for Kali this morning. Not that she ever waits for you to be ready. Kali can come and get you, and she severs that fixation of the ego in a second, you know. Um, So let me just settle that energy and turn come a little back to Tara. So coming back to Tara, I don't even remember what I was saying actually. Yeah, coming back to the mantra, right? Just beginning to evoke, to awaken the energy of Tara in the space. So let's begin, and as we chant this mantra Om Matara Soha, I want you just to begin this work or continue this work of learning how and exploring and getting curious about how to start noticing, becoming aware of the energy of Tara, awakening in the space, noticing space, noticing the rising of suffering, brokenheartedness, noticing any experience that feels warm, nurturing. Shakti is a part of Shakti is the essence. Oh, well, I don't want to use the word essence here. So Shakti is when we feel something moving, something fluid. That's Shakti. It's Shakti is like the circulatory system of the mother. It's the blood. It's what's pumping. It's what's moving. It's what's circulating in space. It's again warm, alive, poignant, vibrant, dynamic, life-giving, passionate, loving. That the Shakti is the blood circulating in the boundless, expansive body of the mother. So we can begin to tune into that, to something that feels moving and warm. As we begin to experience Shakti, some of us, of course, are, if you're Kundalini practitioners and so forth, then this is something that feels very natural to you. But for those of us who are new to Shakti, yeah, just noticing. Sometimes there's a numbness that arises from our relationship to Shakti, but there is opening, awakening. Again, a more intensive experience of the brokenheartedness, but also of the joy as well. I don't want to just focus on the brokenheartedness, but for me, early on, I began to understand the presence of the mother and Shakti as first as an introduction to brokenheartedness, but also, also an introduction as, for those of you who are Kundalini practitioners, that like there's joy that arises as Kundalini begins to awaken at the root chakra and begins to move up the spine. That's Kundalini awakening in the body is Shakti rising right up the spine. So that can be accompanied with a lot of joy as well, a lot of euphoria. So anything that happens basically is an expression of the mother arising for us in practice. That's the gist of this talk. you know. But let's begin. Let's begin again, just paying attention. And as we chant, just really allowing the energy of the mother to awaken. Like this is our direct kind of introduction. You know, it's just like I'm chanting this. I'm opening my heart and mind. Right. I'm becoming hypersensitive. I'm noticing what's changing and shifting in the space around me and in my body. Everything that I notice in terms of change is an expression of the mother. And that's where we begin building our relationship. in the practice. So let's begin. Okay. So on Matar Soha. Om Matara 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 Soha. We're going to continue and we're going to continue humming for a few rounds, okay? So humming it. Now transitioning from humming it to actually just reciting the mantra Om Matara Soha, Om Matara Soha. So just saying it over and over again at whatever speed feels appropriate. So just chanting it. And again, through your awareness, just becoming sensitive to how the energy around you is changing inside and out. Okay. Om Matara Soha, Matara. Om Matara Soha. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. As you continue to chant, just continue the opening. Continue the opening of the heart, opening of your mind. And by opening, I mean just allowing just more stuff to be held within the space. The joy, the happiness, the sadness, the sorrow. allowing that just to begin to arise within this boundless spaciousness of the mother. Just letting go and allowing things just to release, to rise up into the spaciousness, that rising up into the spaciousness of this material that we've been holding on to is an offering into the heart of the mother. So continuing with chanting. And when you're ready, I want you to transition to a silent mantra. So it's just a mantra that we begin to recite mentally. So when you're ready, you can start just allowing the mantra, the mental mantra, just kind of slow down and come to a stop. Just for a few moments, I wonder if you can just open your awareness, right, and begin to allow your awareness to mingle with this awakened energy in you and around you. So, of course, the way for us to move into this practice is just moving through open awareness, where we're not focusing on anything, but we're just becoming aware of everything. That we're not focusing, we're not grounding, we're not anchoring, just this open, spacious awareness. We're able to get a sense of many things at once. And this open awareness is where we begin to really move into the heart of the mother, of Matara. Even moving deeper into the practice, I invite you to intentionally, if you haven't been doing so yet, intentionally beginning to offer some of the things that you've been struggling to hold for yourself into this expansiveness, this emptiness, openness. The heartbreak, the fatigue, even joy, gratitude, happiness. We feel it, we notice it, we feel it, we offer it out and let it ride and float out into the ocean of the mother, the essence, the ocean-like essence of the mother. Making an offering of these things into emptiness itself. So we're going to start transitioning out of the practice. We're going to do so just by bringing our attention to the weight of our body, making contact with the seat. Just noticing that contact. And shifting our attention now to the base of our spine. And imagining that you're breathing up and down the spine. This is we call our central channel breath. So breathing up the spine, exhaling down the spine. And the point of this breath is to just start clearing, releasing any energy that we've kind of gotten to the central channel. Clearing that out just a little bit, maybe unstopping something as well. And coming back, again, touching into the weight of the body, making contact with the seat. Allowing yourself to move through some gentle movements, some stretching, maybe. You know, you can add a soundtrack to your stretching. Mine is Olivia Newton-John. Let's get physical, physical. I wanna get physical, physical. Let me see your body talk, body talk. Yeah, so isn't that a wonderful video? Okay. Okay, coming back. Right, to our seats. All right. So I'm gonna open up the space for any questions. If there are any questions, let me. You can go ahead and put those into the ask a question box. So it's agitation. It could be anything. I think sometimes um, we get into it. Just starts. Sometimes the chanting takes us into material, right? Into energetic material experiences that we have to offer that as well. and uncovers. Chanting uncovers quite a bit, and the way that we chant it, which we haven't done, I haven't led you through that kind of chanting. It's actually that chanting. That kind of chanting is also is very traditional as well. So you do like a melody chanting, then you just chant it. Often when you're accumulating mantras, you're just doing a really quick chanting like that, and then resting the mind, and the mental chanting. All that's just taking us into different levels of energy, and we can also say it's taking us deeper and deeper into experiences as well. So it's it's channeling energy in different ways, and deeper and deeper into different places. If you can't see me, then you're saying my energy body arise, which is emptiness and space. So that, of course, says more about your enlightenment than mine. So good job. Now, of course, when we take this practice out into the world, the mother is always there to be called. No matter what's happening, we can just turn our mind to Tara. You know, and again, for me, these days, this particular period, and actually for a while now, Dumavati Ma has been a really strong presence for me, as well as Dumavati is the path, is what holds my grieving. She's what holds the grieving, the grief. But anyway, this practice, we call the mother and we just offer. We just let it go. I call the mother. I just let everything out. I offer it you know, into, you know, into her expression. So the question here from Astrid: I've found that the more distressed I am, or the more busy my mind is, the more challenging it is to work. It is to just work with the mother and offering to spaciousness without first working with an anchor or grounding, earth breathing, or something to steady my mind. It just goes off into rumination, thinking. I just need to keep bringing it back. Any thoughts? I think it's fine to start with the earth because the earth is an expression of the mother as well. So if earth breathing, earth practice is more grounding, then yeah, you go there. This kind of practice we've done today, and often, what we do in mother practice in general is very abstract, it's very open, it's very spacious, not so grounding. It's not a this kind of like practice isn't so grounding. So I think it's great to start with the earth practice, right? Um, and we can see the earth is just an expression of the mother as well. Um, and then, when we start talking about the mother after you do the earth grounding practice, it can just be a contemplation or reflection that at least we can do a reflection, contemplation that everything is being held by the mother. Even though we can't practice that, we can think about it. Everything is being held. Thank you so much. Oh, curious about something. So, Tara practice as a way to move beyond trauma. Could you say more about that, particularly for when it's mother related trauma? Yeah. So, again, when we were practicing mothers, or when we were practicing in the tradition of the mother, or any mother, right? It is a practice of space. And in space, everything is being held, even the trauma. So, when I talk about moving beyond the trauma, I don't mean that the trauma disappears or goes away. It means that I'm no longer bound in a reactive relationship with the trauma. You know, that I can see the trauma, I can name the trauma, but there's so much space that's holding the trauma that I can actually choose to do something else in that moment instead of just react to the trauma. And that's important. Even trauma around this kind of like mother, physical, our actual physical mothers, right? Whatever that trauma may be. It's like noticing that and saying, okay, there it is. But now I'm going to make a choice to actually lean into this more expansive expression of the ultimate mother, which is space, emptiness. And even just, we talk about basic trauma theory, just like what we're doing is, even in basic trauma work, we're working with space and choice. So we're trying to give the experience of trauma space, and we're trying to remember that we have a choice in how to relate to that trauma, right? Which again, it aligns very closely with the deity practice, because the deity practice is about space and choice. Um, let's see. So another question. I'm feeling curious about the touchstones. Is that word you use? Yeah, touchstones is the word. For me, items like that seem to be lost and returned a few times over the years, and then I lose all of them in short course. So, what's up when our touchstones need to disappear all at once? I experienced the loss of those items, Steve, and I think I hang on to the feelings of loss too long. Well, it's these things. I've had things. I've had very precious things that have been given to me that I've seen as touchstones. That I have just like they've just disappeared, literally just disappeared, you know, and I can't figure it out at all. But you know, these things migrate. They go where they need to go, you know. And once we develop an attunement to objects, to things, we begin to understand that there are things that are just very conscious. Crystals, stones are very conscious, right? And you don't see this, I'm surrounded by crystals and stones and everything, and they're all talking. They all have personalities. They're conscious, and they're telling me, you know, that they want to be used, or they tell me that they need to be recharged, or they sometimes they tell me that they want me to pass them to someone else who needs them more than I do, and that's fine. You know, you have to allow physical objects, particularly things that you consider sacred objects, to have agency and to migrate and to move around. Um, you know, um, so then when our touchstones disappear all at once, they need to be somewhere else. Like you don't need them anymore. When a sacred object disappears, then you have to understand that like it's not needed anymore. You know, or when you get the urge to give something away, it means that I have elders who've given me like precious objects, and the condition is that like I keep the object for as long as the object wants to stay with me, and then when the object wants to leave, then I have to do a due diligence to make sure I'm able to pass that object on to the next person who needs it. Yeah. Or if not, they just disappear. They kind of go in some form or fashion. Yeah. Letting go of those feelings of loss because it's about movement and fluidity and change and evolution, right? You're making room for what you need next to appear in your life. This is a part of a, I guess I would say a body of work, but like some writing, thinking for the next book, for my next book, which is about, which some of you have heard me talk about this before. Well, quite frankly, this is all I ever talk about. So, but indigenous dharma, the dharma of indigeneity, and framing a practice. Well, we're thinking about how do we frame dharma practice in a way that is aligned with the consciousness, the consciousness of phenomenal reality, really, and it's already present within Dharma cultures, you know, not here in the West, but in Asian Dharma countries, right? But how do we begin to see the world? I mean, this is well. Let me just back that up. Not just culture, but in the philosophy of Buddha Dharma, this is present, but it's not so much expressed in what we practice in the West. This is what I'm trying to say. Because it's not culture. Like, it's not about culture, it's about the philosophy of Dharma itself, which says that actually, well, maybe this is my interpretation, but this is what I believe, that the phenomenal world is actually conscious, right? There's a knowingness, there's an awareness that all phenomena embodies. And how do we place ourselves in relationship to that consciousness intentionally? How do we honor the consciousness of the land, of the elements, of our homes, of our stones, of our iPhones, right? You know, how do you see the inherent agency of all phenomena in reality? And how do we align ourselves with the agency of phenomena? So that's what I'm working out as a theory right now. My next book is going to be very different in that respect. It's going to be more of a shift in how we understand Dharma than getting us to practice something. All right. Any other questions? Any other thing we can answer? It's been wonderful in this first hour and a half to be here, to work with everyone. So we'll dedicate the merit of this first section to the liberation of all beings, to that we all that all beings, all formless and form beings, that we all may get what we need in order to continue the work of liberation, that we all are freed as quickly as possible from the cycle of birth and rebirth, and that we all recognize and realize our in, innate Buddhahood. And as we move forward from this space, we pray that the arms of the Mother continue to embrace us. Okay, thank you all so much. Um, We'll just take let's just take like a 5 minute break for those of us who will continue on into the meditation, into Mahamudra. So let's just take a 5 minute break, um, and then we'll start up again in 5 minutes. If you need to take a break, I'm just gonna like sit here because I'm actually feeling okay. But if you need to just get up, use the restroom, stretch some, just go ahead and do that, and we'll get ready in 5 minutes to start again. We'll start in 1 more minute. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin. Welcome back. Welcome to everyone who's joined us just now for our sixth portion of our Sunday service. Welcome. Welcome to everyone who's new again. Thank you so much. Um, so we're just going to move through our basic practice. And as I was saying in the beginning of our first part of our service this morning is that we will be offering a multi-week course on this kind of first level of Mahamudra. So you're really particularly working with Shanae, mindfulness, concentration, um, doing some like trauma-informed work, some movement practice along with it as well. So we have just kind of like I know many of us are new to the practice of Mahamudra. So as Lama Justin goes off into retreat, um, I'll just be taking up a little more of the work around Mahamudra until he gets back. Okay, this summer. Okay, so let's us begin, and we're gonna just move through um, our attention practice, gratitude practice, devotion practice, getting us into our body, and then just getting us into some Shanae practice, which is just noticing how the mind is in this moment, and this is Shanae or karma abiding practice is really found the foundation. If we don't train in this basic foundation of karma abiding Mahamudra, the fruition of Mahamudra as insight into the nature of everything it is impossible. Actually, it becomes impossible. So karma abiding or Shanae is the stabilization of practice, and this is where many of us have to spend the bulk of our practice. It's in the stabilization, right? But the stabilization is has so many profound benefits as we extend that foundation out into our into our lives, to our day-to-day living. The stabilization, of just learning to hold space, to notice, hold space for everything that arises in the mind is incredibly important right now. This is an incredible important resource for ourselves. This is an incredible important resource to offer those around us. Like what people are really needing, particularly people who don't have a practice, are really needing is for many of us to embody an experience of foundation of stabilization. Like we have to experience groundedness to hold and to care for so many people around us who just who may not look like it, right? But who are indeed beginning to spin out of control. And we're, for those of us who have a strong practice, we're going to be called upon to really hold the space for a lot of people who feel as if they're spinning out of control. Who feel as if they have no agency to be with their minds, who feel as if, the material of their minds is overwhelming, and so forth, right? All of that. So calm abiding, Shanae, is where we start in understanding and experiencing that the mind can be in whatever state it can be in, but what we're trying to do is allow the mind to be in its natural state, which is the natural state of the mind essentially is material being held by limitless space. That the material itself is an expression of that space itself, right? Of course, that's Mahamudra, right? That's the later end of fruition of Mahamudra when we realize that. But at the beginning, again, we're just trying to allow the space to hold everything just by noticing what's happening in our minds, and by noticing, naming it, you know, experiencing it, letting go. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? I feel like I've written a book that contains those instructions. Um, so that's what we'll move into. So again, when we're practicing, allowing your body to come into a position that feels appropriate for you, and again, just let yourself be. Like no one can see you. I can't see you. If you need to lie down, lie down. If you need to stand up, if you just want to like lounge around, as I get older, I find myself less interested in super rigidity of the body. But just allow, it's just so much rigidity happening. There's just so much happening right now that we need to create spaces that we're allowing ourselves to be. So allow yourselves to be in whatever way that's appropriate for you. And let's turn our attention to our intentions, our aspirations for practice. Why are we practicing? Let's just reflect on that. Why are you practicing? And I like to keep intentions very spacious, very open. The more specific we get, the more likely we won't experience, whatever goal that we've set out. But in general, my general intention for practice is just to reduce violence for myself and others, to be of benefit to myself and others, something like that. Not that you hope to achieve, this one point of concentration by the end of practice, because you probably won't do that because you fixated on a goal. The spirit of Mahamudra is that we let go of agendas and goals. And we say, whatever happens, happens. And whatever happens, we can just show up and be present. I think that's a great aspiration. I just want to show up and be present to my mind. And that's great. Let's do that. Taking a few more moments to work through that intention for yourself. And let's move into our gratitude and devotion practice. So if you're doing a gratitude practice, beginning to reflect on something or someone you're grateful for, or all the ways in which you are the recipients of so much labor and kindness from other beings. Allowing that experience of gratitude to awaken within the heart center, allowing that energy to spread out from the heart center throughout the body. We're surrendering to gratitude, allowing ourselves to be held by gratitude. And in the same way, if we are doing a devotional practice, we're remembering the kindness, the labor of teachers and guides and mentors and spiritual friends, as well as the kindness, the labor of our lineages. Reflecting on how our practice has been deepened by the labor of the lineage and individuals and deities as well. Again, allowing devotion, gratitude to awaken. This is an important part of traditional practice because it just allows our minds to enter into a fluidity and openness. We're open. Gratitude and devotion opens us. This allows our minds to, it opens our awareness so we can notice the spaciousness and the fluidity a lot more than being closed down and rigid. When you're ready, I invite you to move into the first part of this practice, which is developing an awareness of what's happening in the mind and in the body. Of course, always remembering to take care of ourselves, remembering the presence of trauma for some of us. Right? If we begin to look at something that feels triggering, again, taking a break from the practice, turning our minds to something that feels more neutral, like maybe the weight of our bodies, or maybe a neutral part of our body, right? Or a sound, turning our attention to a sound, or something that we're sensing around us is also helpful. But turning our attention into our minds, and you can work at your own pace with this, but beginning to notice thoughts and emotions, and maybe moving in and out of noticing physical sensation. Noticing, naming what you're experiencing. We're not thinking about anything. We're just noticing, letting go, noticing something else, letting go. We're not reacting. Right? We're not reacting to anything. We're just allowing everything to be in its place. This is the instruction of calm abiding, Shinei practice. We're just allowing. But as you allow, you're always also experiencing. So even as you experience, right, you're feeling into the body, you're feeling into the mind, just feeling it, just noticing how energy moves the body through the mind. That's the feeling quality. Maybe noticing if you're attracted to it or repelled by it. If it feels good, if it feels bad, just noticing. Just don't make it a big deal. Just make it nice and easy and simple. Just like Lionel Richie saying, it's easy like Sunday morning, which for some of us is still morning. So easy, make the practice easy like Sunday morning. Whenever you need to, just refresh your meditation. Stretching, getting a sip of water, just a short refreshing, just 15, 20 seconds, and then coming right back into the practice. Whenever you feel, dull or distracted or agitated, just take a break. Take a break, refresh, and come back, and do that as much as you need to. And two, remember, just to keep it nice and easy, right? So we're not really doing anything, but just allowing, developing this natural awareness of what's arising for us in our minds and our bodies. So remembering the instructions of Talopa, no fixing, no adjusting, no, no creating, you know, just watching, noticing, allowing. So if you haven't recently, I invite you to refresh your practice. So as we come back into practice, I invite you to shift into the sky-like mind practice. So we begin to imagine that our mind is just this vast, open, spacious sky, right? And it's bright. The brightness of the sky is the energy of our awareness. We notice that our thoughts, emotions are like clouds passing through the sky. And we're just watching and letting these clouds of thoughts and emotions pass through the sky of our minds. So we'll prepare to start transitioning out of the practice. We begin by shifting our attention just down to our seat, noticing the weight of our bodies, making contact with the seat, allowing our attention to be held by this sensation for a few moments. As we prepare to even move even further out of the practice, we just want to make just a final aspiration to take whatever we've experienced or learned about our minds or bodies in this session out into our lives, out into our interactions with folks. So having made that aspiration, we begin to step out of the practice, still holding this energy of awareness of body and mind, allowing ourselves to just move through some simple movements to awaken the body. Some stretching, some deep breathing, cleansing breaths, if it's part of your practice. I want to thank you for your practice today. Just we have a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions about the practice, you can go ahead and put that in the question box if you want. Okay. If there's nothing else, I want to thank everyone again for your practice and the final dedication of the merit of our practice. Dedicate the merit out to the liberation of all beings from the cycle of birth and rebirth, that the energy, the virtue of this practice may help all beings get the resources that they need in order to be well, and to get the resources that they need in order to continue the work of liberation. May we and all beings get free as quickly as possible. All right. Thank you all so much. And I'll see some of you tomorrow night for our Medicine Buddha practice. All right. Thank you. Have a good day.